As I look back on it, I think it all started that Christmas when someone gave me a digital watch. Then came a Sony Walkman, a cordless telephone, a talking calculator. It wasn't any time at all. I started playing video games. I thought I could handle it, I really did. Then one morning, I woke up on the floor of a video arcade. Everything was a blank. I just couldn't afford this kind of public humiliation again. That's when I brought Pac-Man into my own home.
San Francisco, 1984. Chase had been drinking a lot of gin. His stepmother had been born in one of the less attractive areas of Middlesbrough in England, and insisted that he celebrate his 18th birthday by getting bamboozled on cheap spirits. She thought Chase was a dull daydreamer and needed something to wake him up. In that regard, she was not entirely wrong. Chase meandered along the sidewalk, failing to hide his drunken state by slipping on some of his own sick and falling gracelessly into a man in drag. Gurgling an apology, Chase looked up at a face lost in makeup, which asked him,
"Hey Slick, you looking for a rad time?"
Chase was totally looking for a rad time, but felt that he should say no. Before he could, however, the djinn opened his mouth for him and said yes.
"Follow me,"
said the man in drag, and guided Chase towards a nearby archway, which was lit up entirely by neon.
The arcade? You want to play video games? Do I look like a dork to you?
Said Chase. The man placed his well-manicured fingers on Chase's shoulders and squeezed them reassuringly.
"You'd be amazed at what you might enjoy, if only you gave it a chance."
"We're closing soon,"
came a voice from behind the nearby counter before its owner slid forward to inspect the new arrivals. Chase shuddered, feeling colder as the clerk grew closer. Once the clerk's face was revealed under the bright neon lights, Chase saw, to his horror, that he had no eyes. Dark, hollow sockets sat below the fiercest scowl Chase had ever seen. The man in drag put his hand on Chase's hip and smiled at the clerk with familiarity.
"I wanted to show him the new cabinet."
The lurching figure sank back into its creaking chair and hid its face behind a magazine.
"Go ahead, Divinity. I'll tell you when I'm locking up."
Chase wondered how the clerk could possibly be reading anything, but his mind was drowning in gin and preferred to pass on the more difficult questions.
Is your name really Divinity?
Chase asked as he was led further into the arcade.
"Sometimes,"
said Divinity with a smirk, before positioning Chase in front of a cabinet. The game was Burgertime. Chase had never heard of it before. Truth be told, Chase hadn't ever played a video game before. Divinity stood behind him, observing from over his shoulder.
So what am I supposed to do? Fight aliens like some loser jerkoid?
Divinity pressed up against Chase's back, his column wedging neatly between Chase's butt cheeks as he slipped a few quarters into the tight slot of the cabinet, only just managing to contain a mirthful whimper. Chase was about to push Divinity away when suddenly his face was illuminated by the game flaring into life with blips and bleeps of joviality. His eyes wide with curiosity, butterflies churning in his gin-pickled stomach, Chase simply murmured,
How do I play?
Divinity slid his hands over Chase's and guided them to the control stick and buttons. Chase began to play. He died frequently, shanked by rogue eggs and wiener dogs, but Divinity was not shy with quarters. Totally consumed by the game, Chase steadily improved, his burgers growing ever higher, ever prouder. So immersed, he didn't resist as Divinity's fingers breached his lips. He swallowed the pill whole, his concentration unwavering. Soon time had melted away, physical mass and the mechanics of the universe no longer had a hold on Chase. He was in the game, laughing as he bounded from burger to burger, blinding eggs with fistfuls of pepper. Chase had never been more happy. The pixels burrowed into Chase's eyes like hungry worms as they made their way to the pleasure centre of his brain, where they took root and began to piss hot streaks of joy with reckless incontinence. He relaxed in Divinity's arms, who watched with delight, head resting on Chase's shoulder.
You're about to beat the high score.
Divinity cooed. Chase opened his mouth to reply, but was interrupted once again by the djinn, which cut him off in the form of an acidic heave which threatened to coat the cabinet in warm, pulpy bile. Forfeiting the high score, Chase abandoned the controls to slap both hands over his mouth, yellow dribble flowing from between his fingertips. Just then, a freezing hand gripped his arm tightly as the clerk leaned in close to hiss,
Time to go.
Chase saw nothing in those sockets other than a reflection of his own soul, which he knew had been changed in some way by this place. Too frightened to empty his turbulent guts here, he pushed both of them aside and dashed to the exit, expelling the vile disgorgement in a lumpy splatter by the feet of a screaming fashionista whose leg warmers would never be the same again. Divinity caught up with Chase, and they both asked for forgiveness at the same time, but waved one another's apologies away dismissively. No need, tut tut, hush, I shouldn't have, etc.
I should head home.
Chase said, glancing at a nearby cab.
Will I see you again?
Divinity's lipstick formed a smile, but he shook his head.
No, but we'll always have burger time.
Remember, it all starts with a harmless quarter, but it can turn to tragedy just like that, 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 just like that.